article in the paper where of me handing out the clothes at the park and the guy followed me around on my routine. But I told you about when I slept out in front of the housing authority and got my housing. That's actually the article that came out of that. And I put signs all over town, and the only one that showed up was my friend Chuck with his guitar. But that was great because it made it look like a big thing. This one here is before I got housing, and I lived in a shack at the landfill out there at the Albany landfill, and that's my wife. Before we had any kids, so I have quite a little collection of things over the years. But yeah, so I'm still working with people that are on the streets. You know, I put in most of my time doing that, and I raise my kids.
Measure S is a proposed sit-lie law on the Berkeley ballot in 2012. If passed, Measure S would ban sitting on sidewalks in commercial areas during business hours. In this documentary, 4 UC Berkeley students interviewed 3 currently homeless persons, 2 formerly homeless persons, and 2 advocates without personal experience as homeless persons. Formerly homeless Dan McMullen, a disabled father, speaks out against Measure S for Berkeley and explains his experience with homelessness.
So what was your personal experience with homelessness?
When I was about 20 years old, I was in a motorcycle accident. At the time, I was working, I was going to school. You know, just the normal things you're doing at 20, just starting out in life, kind of. And I hit one of those green transformer boxes, and I was doing about 90 miles an hour, and it tore my leg off, broke all my ribs, broke my clavicle. I have a steel plate here. My arm's wired up, and it's starting to fall apart really bad lately, but it lasted for a while. And I broke my pelvis in 7 places. So basically, I was in really bad shape, and I was in a trauma unit for a month and a half, which is like unheard of. It's like the average stay in a trauma unit is like 3 days. Then either you die or you move up into intensive care. But I was actually there for a month and a half, and then I moved to intensive care. And about a year and a couple of months later, 14 months, I was getting better to the point where I could move on into like rehab. When I first got there, that night a woman got boiled alive in a bathtub, and another man that had no legs fell out of bed and died, and they sent some people in to find out what was going wrong with the place, and they were finding people that had maggots in their wounds. I mean, it was just, the place smelled so bad. I went in there, I spent like 5 minutes in there, and I went outside, and I think I cried for about 8 hours. I called around to different relatives my parents died when I was young, so I really didn't have anybody. So I called around to the few relatives that I did have, and they kind of ho and hummed, and you know, we'll come get you, we'll see what we can do, blah, blah, blah. But I couldn't stay there. There was just no way. And then a woman, while I'm out there in the parking lot, a woman from the news team comes up, and she interviews me about what's going on in there. So I tell her the truth, you know. And then when I go back inside, the guys are like, you know what, they'll kill you in here. You know, you can't be talking like that to the news. When that comes out on the news, you're a dead man. And so that kind of got me kind of scared. So I just said, I'm out of here. And so it was me and a pair of crutches, and I left. And I spent the next about 10 years on and off. Sometimes I would live with friends or something, but about a good 10 years as a homeless person. I ended up in People's Park. The people there actually took care of me. You know, they would, you know, go get food for me. You know, people would drop off clothes and everybody would run. I can't run, so they'd grab clothes for me and bring them back. You know, so, and I really got attached to the people. One of the guys that went up there, his name was Bob Sparks, and he was an activist that came up and helped people at the park. And he told me, he goes, you know, if you're sleeping out here on the sidewalk, he goes, you know, I was telling him how I keep going to Social Security, and they keep sending me a letter. Your condition will not last longer than a year. This goes on for 10 years. He goes, why don't you just go and sleep in front of the Social Security office? They're the ones that aren't paying you. And I go, wow, that's a pretty good idea. So I went to the Social Security office, and I slept out in front. And in the morning, when they opened the door up, I was the first one there. They'd open the door up, I'd go inside, I'd take number 1. They'd call me. I'd go up there. Can you check and see if anything's going on with my Social Security? You know, I'm having a hard time out here, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, she'd play like, oh, here we go again. She'd type in my name. You know, nothing yet, Mr. McClellan. Okay, thank you. I'd go outside, wait a few minutes, come back in. Number 13, come back in. Number 42, can you check? And I would do this all day. So it went on 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. By the end of the week, this is like 5 days of doing this. Friday, they all want to go home. I'm bothering, and now I'm taking, coming in every 15 seconds because I know they're going to be gone for the weekend, and I want to make sure I get in my, they remember me. And so halfway through the day, the manager comes out. He goes, "Can I speak to you for a second?" He brings me in the back and he goes, "So tell me what's going on with you." And I tell him my whole story, and he looks, I got, I'm wearing an artificial leg all the way up to here. And, I got this much leg left, and I go, this is all I got. I didn't even have an artificial leg. I had no medical care whatsoever. No pain medication. That's one thing where they're going, all these people are drunks. For some people, having 2 beers is the only thing that'll, cure, even put a dent in the pain you're in out there. And that's basically what I was going through. And so, he goes, "I can't believe this." He goes, "I'm going to get put through what's called a presumptive disability." I go, "What's that?" He goes, "I just presume you're disabled. Let the paperwork catch up to you, and we'll just put it through today." And I go, "Well, when will I get a check?" He goes, "You'll get one today." And that was the first time I got any money in 13, 14 years. And, that day I went up to the park. I bought all the people that were taking care of me new jackets, and we had a little party, and it was just great. I mean, that was the start. And then I go, well, if that worked for the money, maybe it'll work for housing. So then I went to the housing authority, and I got a big sign, and I put it on the front and said, "Why are there so many disabled people on the streets in Berkeley?" And I taped it to the front of the housing authority. And then I called the news, and the news guy came out. He talked to me for a couple minutes, then he goes, "I'm going to go in there and find out what's going on." And then he comes back out with the director of the housing authority, and they go, "Can you come in?" And they gave me a voucher for housing that day. And that's how I got off the street. Yeah, when I was homeless, I was ticketed a lot. I got a lot of tickets and went to jail a lot. It was a nightmare. Court is hard to go to, even if you're live in a house and have a car and you got to be there at 9 o'clock and take the day off and blah blah blah. But just think when you don't even have a watch. You know what I mean? And when you get so many tickets, you can't even keep track of them anymore because they got tickets for being in the park too late, tickets for smoking downtown. They didn't have those back then, but they had plenty of them. They call them, if they caught you with a backpack, they would say you were lodging, so they would give you a lodging ticket. And I mean, what is that? 647J. I can remember the number. I got it so many times. And this was even back then. We had a court here in Berkeley that you could go to. If they were in Oakland, I would have never got to court. Forget about it. But even in Berkeley, every now and then one slips by you. You just forget. And it's not like you're going to get something at the house that says, "Hey, you got court on such and such a day," because you don't have an address to pick up anything that gets sent out. So, yeah, I had a lot of tickets. I went to jail a lot for not going to, court for tickets.
Vivian Thorpe, a formerly homeless mother raising children, speaks out against Measure S for Berkeley and explains her experience with homelessness.
What is your experience with homelessness?
My experience was a 4-year experience of not having a proper place to live with my 2 children and my ex-partner. We were homeless for about 4 years, close to 4 years, in Oakland, California during the dot-com boom. That's been my experience, and not having economic stability nor housing stability for me and my children. So we lived in an abandoned storefront for close to 4 years. And even though I was working and had a job, my job didn't pay enough to afford the high rents that were going during that time. And when the tech industry was booming and rents were soaring at astronomical heights, we couldn't afford the rent. It's been really hard.
How did you get out of that?
How I got out of homelessness was I advocated for myself, diligently advocated with other housing organizations, and kept going at the advocacy with different organizations in the community who fought to help ensure me some housing, adequate housing. And it took about 2 years to advocate for that housing. And pretty much while I was on welfare, I went to college and earned 2 degrees, earned my associates and my bachelor's. And that was a guaranteed ticket out of poverty and pretty much out of homelessness. Me, as a formerly homeless person, I can't even imagine having such a punitive and what I could say demoralizing law in place. For me, Measure S breaks civil rights, liberties on every level. I mean, during my homelessness, I'd lived in different homeless shelters throughout Oakland, and they would kick us out during the day, like in the morning, like from 9:30 to 10 at night, and sometimes you had nowhere to go, and we would just walk around and kind of sit and hang out and rest and sit in public places, because you'd be in public places, going to the store, doing your public transportation, whatnot, and to actually think that you cannot do that between a certain hour when things are open is unconscionable, especially when there's no drop-in day centers or any resources where low-income people can go, because there were days when you didn't have money to spend in stores or go places, and you didn't know what to do, and you felt afraid to sit in a park or whatever, and you would sit on the side on benches or side areas and just sit there with your kids and just kind of wait until the day passed. You know, to actually think that it would be a crime to sit and rest and relax and be able to put your thoughts together about what you're going to do with your survival and be criminalized for that in a punitive way that is so wasteful in tax dollars and in community effort. I mean, even for the police, it's a waste of time to criminalize people because they simply have nowhere to go and can't afford to go anywhere. So for me, Measure S is absolute no, is an absolute no on S. And to actually think that it's okay to punish people because of their economic misfortune is unconscionable.
To explore the Yes on S campaign's claim that Measure S is necessary due to a sudden influx of homeless youth, we spoke with two homeless youths at the Suitcase Clinic.
One set of stores is like, yes on S, we support Berkeley civil sidewalks, saves jobs, helps people. I don't really understand that logic, saves jobs, help people. I mean, they're sitting down on the ground. Logic doesn't make sense to me. There are a lot of people sitting in front of stores and stuff, but I do not see anybody ever deterred from these people. I mean, I'm not the type to sit on a sidewalk and ask for money. I mean, not that I haven't done it, but I really don't like doing it, so I refrain from doing it unless I really need it at the moment. But I see plenty of people that do it on a regular basis. And I mean, for the most part, they're very calm, very pleasant people. You know, some of them are a little older, but the older ones, they just sit there and shake their cup, you know. They don't bother anybody. Sit in live measure and just, it's kind of silly because it just paves the way for selective enforcement, and that's all it's going to make way for, because they're not going to enforce it on everybody. Selective enforcement, so whatever the cop feels like at the moment, you know, and he could be a cool cop and he'd be like whatever, or you know, he could have a stick up his ass in the moment if you just feel like messing with people, you know, and you could edit that out if you want.
We're being shit on by society. They're trying to shove us away in a corner, and I don't know where that corner is going to end up. Humanity has lost. They don't remember what it's like to be human. And now you got a law being passed where you can't even sit. Now they're going to control where you can sit. And that's ridiculous.
So have you, as of late, been told to move? Have you been excited?
They come up and they tell us, well, here in a couple of weeks we're going to start giving out tickets if you guys are staying on the sidewalk. Them saying that is them assuming that this law is already going to get passed. And so they're telling us when it does, we're going to come down the sidewalk.
So who are they? Would they be police officers?
Police officers. Police and the homeless are at war, and society doesn't see it. They mess with us hardcore. You know why? Nobody cares. There are more vacant homes than there are homeless. So you have, especially because of the economy right now, you have a lot of people who used to have a lot of money who are now on the streets trying to get by. And then you got people who keep walking on by like we're dismissed. We don't need to be cared about, I guess.
At the Homeless Action Center, we spoke with Joseph Cuff, an older, currently homeless person, about homelessness and Measure S.
And to make it a crime then, for people that are already going through life, not knowing exactly what they want out of life, but then they turn around and criminalize it. I think that's like a double whammy. I think like first we have some people with some issues that we need to care about if we think that or if we feel that. And then second, we're going to criminalize them for doing it? That doesn't make sense to me. Give them a record, they could mess them up for the rest of their lives. A job, you go to a job, they ask you, hey, you've been arrested? All of a sudden, oh yeah. Or an apartment. You'd be surprised to go to apartments. Everyone wants to throw them background. I think it's intended to harass the street people, and I don't want to call them street people, the journeyers. That's probably a better word for it. People that are journeying through life, haven't yet found an niche. And I don't think it'll be enforced on other people, though. I think that the police will be selective in the prosecution of people. And they're looking for a way to do it legally that they can do it and say, no, I got you. I mean, right now, there's people will be out there, oh, civil rights violation, whatever. But once they pass the law, then it's okay. Police are doing their job now.
We asked Patty Wall, Executive Director of the Homeless Action Center, why Measure S won't get homeless people into services and what No One S proposes as alternatives.
Most of the homeless services in Berkeley are at capacity right now. So there are 600 homeless people and there are only, I think, 135 shelter beds. And there are plenty of services for case management and housing help, and they're all serving as many homeless people as they possibly can right now. There's no money attached to this measure to increase homeless services, to make it easier for homeless people to get into services. And I think that's the most deceptive part of Measure S. I think that the Downtown Berkeley Association and the Telegraph Business Improvement District have both said that this measure is actually going to solve homelessness because it's going to help people, it's going to urge people to get into services, when that's absolutely false. There's no information that supports that in the least. The threshold question about what ends people's homelessness is housing. If you get somebody into housing, their homelessness is ended, and you can attach many other services to that housing to make it stick and to make it so that people succeed in their new housing. There's not a youth shelter during the summer months, so from April to November, there is no youth shelter. So people from 18 to 24 either have to compete for the scarce beds in the grown-up shelter or they stay on the streets. Funding a year-round youth shelter would be a big step in getting homeless youth into services and off the streets. There's no daytime drop-in center for youth in Berkeley. There used to be, and there is not now. And that would be a great improvement that we could make, and a great connection we could make with homeless youth to get them into services and to help them get on the path to housing if that's something that they're interested in doing. But right now we offer them nothing, and we're surprised that they don't automatically get into housing that they can't afford and don't know how to get into. We have lots and lots of solutions. And criminalizing homeless people, giving them tickets for being in public space, is not a solution at all, and not something that would ever get us any closer to housing anybody. So I don't know why they say we don't have solutions. We have plenty of solutions. Let's sit down and come up with a plan that we can all agree on. Let's use the money that's now being spent to vilify and criminalize homeless people on pathways to housing. In other jurisdictions, like in Los Angeles County, the Chamber of Commerce is a contributor to housing for chronically homeless people in LA County. Here, the Chamber of Commerce is a contributor to criminalizing homeless people. That's a huge difference. We need to restart this conversation at a place where we all agree that what we want to do is end homelessness. And we haven't done that yet.
The Yes on S campaign says that Measure S is necessary due to a sudden influx of homeless youth. What are the facts surrounding homelessness in Berkeley?
There aren't really that many young homeless people right now, but you know, I do my own little test to see who's from where and why they're out there, and 40% of homeless people are disabled people. Another 30% are kids that went through foster care and are just kind of like just let go when they're 18. And you know, the rest of them are kind of like thrill-seeking kids that are out on a lark, and or escaping some kind of abuse at home. You know, so the only way you can really, you know, bring those numbers down is to like, one, give kids that are in foster care longer care, you know, like through college, you know, two, do a better job with people that are being abused at home, and three, take better care of homeless, better care of disabled people. You know, my income has gone down every few months. My income goes down. You know, $40 here, $50 there. You know, they cut my IHSS. Every time that I get a cost of living increase, the state takes it away. You know, so my money's, you know, there could come to a point where I could be out on the streets again. You know, it's really scary for me, you know, because it's not just me anymore. Now I have children to worry about.
The shelter is very limited in Berkeley. There's about 110 shelter beds for most of the year, for at least 600 homeless people. There is a youth shelter that's only open during the winters, and that's 35 beds. We know that there's several times that many homeless youth who don't have access to beds, and the beds fill up immediately as soon as the shelter opens in November, and remain full through April. There's a very serious dearth of beds, but it's not just at nighttime. There's a lack of access to the place. There's also a problem during the daytime. There are 2 adult drop-in centers in Berkeley, but they have somewhat spotty access. They're not open every day. And there's no youth drop-in. The youth drop-in closed in 2004. So for young people, there's not an indoor safe place that they can be during the day. When people get citations for infractions, and most of the crimes of just being homeless are infractions, they have to go to court in Oakland, or else they'll be given a bench warrant. If you have an outstanding bench warrant, it's not possible to access public housing. It's not possible to access most kinds of nonprofit housing. There are a few exceptions on the nonprofit front, but they're the minority. So criminalization kind of just perpetuates homelessness. People are homeless because of the widespread poverty in our society, and we like to not recognize that. It's sometimes uncomfortable to recognize how much poverty there is in the U.S. But people are homeless because they're poor, and they're not poor because of some personal failing. They're poor because of systemic problems. They're poor because of the lack of access to health care in our society. They're poor because of the economic structure of our society. They're poor because we've been shredding the safety net since the late 1970s. And then lastly, for young people who are homeless, the primary causes of homelessness are basically adult cruelty and adult impropriety. About 40% of homeless youth report that they have been beaten by foster parents or by their actual parents, their birth parents. 25% report being on the receiving end of sexual advances from adults, and 20% became homeless because their parents disapproved of their sexual orientation. And it's much higher than that in the Bay Area. In the Bay Area, it's more like 40%. Using the criminal justice system as sort of like a nun's ruler to slap kids into some imaginary line, basically just further alienates people who've already been treated badly by adult society from mainstream society. So it's completely counterproductive.
Given the facts, why does the Yes on S campaign promote misconceptions about the homeless people of Berkeley?
It's not a misconception, but it's a ploy. It's an election year, okay? Tom Bates cannot go to the neighborhoods and get support from people in the neighborhoods because he's done nothing but screw over all the people in the neighborhoods. So he has to go to the business people. And in order to go to the business people, he has to come up with something that he's got to give them something. So he goes, hey, you know what? I got this idea. It's only the 5th time we've done it in the last 10 years, but let's try it again. No sitting on the sidewalks, all right? They've already passed this law before. It went to California Supreme Court and was shot down. It's unconstitutional.
Right.
He knows that, all right? But it's a way for him to buddy up with the business people, and because they're a new group. You know, it's a new group of business people. They don't know all this, and they shell out the money so he can get all the pretty signs he puts up all over town. You know, he knows I'm not gonna send him $5. All right? I sent Chris $20. Before I was in my accident, I was one of those people. I voted for Reagan. Okay? Reagan screwed me. Okay? He's the one that cut the Social Security that I didn't get. Okay? I was like, Reagan, yeah, get the hostages back. I remember those days. And but I was so stupid. I was an idiot. I just had no idea of the bigger picture of what people go through. I'd see somebody on the sidewalk, I'd think, oh, get a job, you're lazy, you're this, you're that. I had all the same things that I hear other people say that piss me off now, because I know better. I know how you can end up out on the streets. It doesn't take much. I was a strong 20-year-old person. I was a determined person. I worked my entire life. When I was a kid, I was a model for Macy's and Gimbels. I was making money when I was 10 years old. I was making money when I was 6 years old. All right? I started mowing lawns and doing landscape when I was 12 years old. I've always worked in my life. I love to work. That's one of the reasons I do all the work I do now, is because I couldn't stand to sit in this house all day. It would drive me crazy not to have something to do or some kind of work to do. And, so it's not because I'm lazy. It's because I was wounded and hurt and in a position where I couldn't do anything. Other people would, they get their backpacks on, they go up and sleep in the hills. I couldn't do that. I had to sleep on the sidewalk. I couldn't walk up that hill. There's just no way. You're saying you being on the sidewalk is having too much. Things need to be worse for you. But let me tell you, when you sweep people off out of the picture, then we don't need to help anybody, do we? Because everything looks fine around here. When we see the person sitting on the sidewalk, then you go, hey, maybe we need to do something about this. But when you sweep the person off the sidewalk, then everything's kosher, right? You don't have to worry about a thing. And that's the whole reason I'm against S. I want my kids to see the person on the sidewalk. I want them to know that there are people that need help, and that there are things that we need to do, and that society is unfair, and they do turn their backs on the people that need it the most. I went down Shattuck the other day, and I took a picture of every single person that was sitting on the sidewalk. I didn't pass anybody up because they didn't fit my idea of what I wanted to show people. I took a picture of every single person. I took a picture of the first man I took a picture of was a person, and my wife was with me, and she said, oh, that's John so-and-so. He's lived here his entire life. My wife was born in Berkeley, so she knows everybody. My wife's mother was born in Berkeley. My wife's mother's mother was born. They go way back in Berkeley. All right, and she goes, that guy, I went to elementary school with him, and there he is, completely busted up on the sidewalk in Berkeley. All right, this guy didn't come to Berkeley to take advantage of this non-services they keep talking about. All right, the next person was some young kid. I hate to say kid, but a young person that was making jewelry, not asking anybody for anything. Just if you like the kid's jewelry, you could stop by and say, hey, that's nice, how much for that? And you could buy it from him. The next person was somebody that was painting. The next person was this guy who was making the coolest patches. I wish I had some money, I would have bought one. And this was the same all the way down. So it was like 5 people that were actually making something and selling it, and 1 person that was severely disabled. And that was all there were out there. Even if they say we're not doing it to go after a certain people, human nature is to go after the person that's bothering you. And is the guy that's rich and with shopping bags in his hand bothering you? No, you don't want to make it uncomfortable for him. You want him to keep shopping. But the guy that's sitting there with his little puppy and his girlfriend, with the dreadlocks, is he bothering you? Well, maybe for some people that bothers them. And especially for police types. They go, hey, I don't like that guy. I don't like his looks. Let me go over there. It gives me a reason to, 1, get his ID. 2, search all his stuff. You know, write him a ticket, get him going to court. Hopefully he'll miss court, get a warrant. Then when I really want to get him off the streets, I just go up. I already know his name because I got his ID. I go, oh, it's Bob so-and-so, and his warrant's out. Let's get rid of him.
Whenever you talk about this measure, it always comes down to there's homeless people. We can't help but have homeless people. Our economic system sucks.
There was a story in Street Roots, which is the homeless newspaper in Portland, about 2 years ago, in which the editor collected stories from newspapers up and down the West Coast, in which half a dozen different cities said, you know, why are we the West Coast magnet for homeless people? San Francisco thinks that homeless people from across the West Coast are coming to San Francisco. Seattle thinks that. Portland thinks that. Santa Cruz thinks that. Berkeley thinks that. San Diego thinks that. The fact of the matter is that homelessness is growing in this country. There are more homeless people now than there were 4 years ago, and that's because of the economy. And there are certainly more homeless people this decade than there were 3 decades ago when we started cutting the hell out of public housing in the country and started treating real estate as an investment rather than as people's homes. I think that there are different kinds of people who are in support of Measure S. I think that there are some people who are genuinely misled, and I think that there are some people who are actively misleading. I think that for small businesses, you know, they're in hard times right now, and they have been for a few years at this point, you know, since about 2007, 2008. And actually even longer than that. But they're particularly hard times since the economic downturn. The causes of their financial misfortune are the national economy, which is way outside of any small business's hands to try to change. The presence of big box stores in Emeryville, which is something that local policy can't really change. And then the growth of internet retail, which is, you know, is probably beyond the federal government's ability to do much about. So there are these three sort of big issues that are really hurting Berkeley businesses, and Berkeley businesses can't fix them, and that's really disempowering. It's not a political message that sells very well. There is no solution to your problems, which isn't true, but that's what it can sound like. And so it's a lot easier to accept a narrative in which there's a scapegoat, in which there are bad people who are making business hard for you, and instead of accepting, you know, these miraculous services which don't actually exist, they're choosing to hang out in front of your store and driving customers away. That kind of scapegoating is psychologically a lot more easy to accept than something which sounds like there's not a lot you can do. So I think that that's part of where the people who are honestly misled come from. Those who are actively misleading are the people who are funding the campaign. If you look at the funding behind Measure S, literally 99%, 98.7% of the funding comes from commercial landlords and from major developers in Berkeley. And they see in Measure S what the same kind of people saw in Prop L in San Francisco. They see a potential wedge issue which can help conservatize the electorate in Berkeley and make it easier to do things like push away rent control. So they're spreading things that they know aren't true. They know from research that homeless people aren't the cause of business hurting in Berkeley. But it doesn't help them to say things like, your business is hurting because you can't afford your rent. I mean, they're the ones who receive the rent. That, I think, is a very different kind of misinformation. It's a misinformation for people who are actively misleading because it's in their interests to mislead.
Instead of Measure S, what could Berkeley do to improve business?
The whole thing about people sitting around is that people sit around because there's something interesting there. It's an interesting place. But now they go up there and there's nothing there, and they keep driving and they go somewhere else. They don't even stop because there's no scene anymore. And everybody wonders, why is business so bad? Because you have these idiots, you know, the big guy, Roland Peterson, I think his name is, the TAA, and the guy at the Med, Craig Becker. They have no idea what the dynamics of Telegraph are. Now, the guy that owns Blondie's and Rasputin's and all those other stores that are up there, he's a multi-millionaire. He agrees with me. He goes, yeah, they're ruining the entire scene at Telegraph and it's killing business. He agrees with me. And who would know better about Telegraph than him? He's made himself a millionaire. He started off with a little stand on the street, then went in and sold used records in a little shop, and then turned it into a huge empire on Telegraph, and he's the only one up there making any money. Because he understands what Telegraph's all about. He don't want to chase the people off the streets. So, it's frustrating for me, because there's so many things that we could do to make Telegraph and downtown better for everybody, for the people that are out there, to the people that want to shop, and we're just not doing it. We wonder why the business is so bad in Berkeley. All they do is trumpet about how bad it is. If you read the paper and you kept reading about, sitting law needs to be in Berkeley, all this bad stuff, blah 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 blah. Would you go, hey, let's go to Berkeley this weekend? Hell no. It's their own mental crap that they're pulling that's ruining Berkeley. I was talking to Mark at he owns Amoeba Records, and I'm thinking about next year start having a competition, a street musician competition, where we put up a big prize and invite people from all over the world to come and try to win the prize as the best street musician. Now doing things like that would bring what Berkeley's all about to Berkeley, and it's something nice and something fun. You could do. There's so many things like that we could do to make it better than passing these stupid laws that make it worse. Stop all the negative. Start, accentuate the positive, and give up all that negative stuff. Get rid of those clowns you got running the TAA and all this. They're complete idiots. They have no idea. Let me run the TAA for a year and see what happens. I'd have Telegraph hopping. Business would be tripled, quadrupled. Stores would be opening up all over the place. People would go, wow, things are happening over there. But the way they're doing it, no, who wants to go up there? It's a ghost town up there. What are you gonna do? Every time it gets worse, they do the same thing that made it worse in the first place. And so, get a new mayor, someone that has some imagination.
And I think it's pretty, depressing for the future of small businesses in Berkeley that the Downtown Berkeley Association and the Telegraph Avenue Business Improvement District are pushing a proven failure rather than looking at sort of research-backed actual possibilities for real improvements in the local economy. Council members Arden's proposal has a few different parts. One is forming a sort of a task force to look at implementation of existing laws. And that's not particularly exciting, but it's probably important to know what's actually going on. But another piece harkens back to a 2010 report from the city's economic development manager. The economic development manager looked at the economic situation in Berkeley, looked at the causes of the financial downturn for small businesses, and came up with a number of proposals, 5 sort of macro proposals about how to improve business for small locally owned retailers. None of this involved anything like Measure S. There was no call in that for additional laws against homeless people. But it was things like creating anchor stores that actually attract student business on Telegraph and on Shattuck, so that students are frequenting the areas more and are shopping in the areas more, and that'll have a sort of a spreading effect for other businesses. That stuff seems to make sense, and it's actually backed by real economists rather than commercial landlords, who are the ones who are actually pushing Measure S. So I think it's a sad thing for Berkeley that we're not giving more time to thinking about the kind of proposals in compassionate sidewalks.
Does the local government in Berkeley demonstrate concern for human rights?
When I need something done, I don't call my councilman, Daryl Moore, all right? He's worthless, okay? That guy will never call you back, will never do. I talked to him face to face. I go, hey, you know what? We have this thing here where there's street sweepers and they come by. And if you don't move your car, they give you a ticket, $80, okay? I don't drive. I have someone that drives me. So if my driver doesn't come, my car gets stuck out there, and I can't do anything about it. I tell people, please, I'm sorry. They give me the ticket anyway. I lost 2 cars because once they give you the tickets, you can't register your car. So I've lost 2 cars that way. I lost my little motorhome that I bought because we went through 3 foreclosures, and I was so scared I was going to end up on the streets with my kids that I bought a little motorhome. I lost that, okay? And there's in the richer parts of town, there are no street sweeper signs. You can park your car forever. Right. So it's just down here in the ghetto that we have to put up with that. And that's what it's made for. It's made to get rid of poor people's cars. Because people that have money, they just pay the stupid $80. They don't care. You know what I mean? I can't afford it. $80 is a lot of money to me. It's a ton of money. You know, it's like lights or pay for the $80 ticket. You know, I got 2 kids to raise here. I'm not going to keep them in the dark. You know, they're going to have water, they're going to have food, they're going to have lights. And if I have to lose my car, fine, but I'm not going to take it sitting down. You know, I'm going to be fighting that one. I like Tom Bates. I've known Tom Bates a long time. I've been to his home. I know his wife. His wife's done great things for me and helped me in the past. I voted for her. But you know, he just doesn't have the imagination it takes. He's been hanging around with too many of these rich developers that have no idea about what's really going down on the ground level. You know, when he first ran for mayor, I got him to come out and sleep with the homeless people. I thought maybe, you know, we could work together. You know, and in the beginning it seemed like we were going to work together, and then he went way over onto the dark side. You know, he's running around with Darth Vader. And, you know, that's not going to do for Berkeley. Berkeley's not that kind of town. Hopefully, I pray.
I see Measure S as being a mistake. It's an error in our community to even think Berkeley, so-called liberal, hippie, friendly, we are the world community, to turn around and actually say, we're going to punish you for not having a place to live or nowhere to go. Take that money and make these resource centers, day drop-in centers, so that younger adults and even mid-age adults who are not seniors have somewhere to go to be able to take care of themselves, take care of their issues, and have somewhere to go where they don't have to be out there in the public. And those who are in the public, you know, reach out to them and let them know these resources are out there. A lot of these people need mental health and stuff, and those services are very hard to navigate, and there's all these red tape rules about medical coverage, and we're in a country where we consider insurance more important than humanity, and that's the truth. Measure S shouldn't even be on the ballot, in my opinion. What should be on the ballot is a measure that ensures day drop-in centers that have comprehensive mental health programs, detox programs. And I'm not talking about options, because to me options is a poverty pimp. So I'm not down with options, because that's a punitive model. I'm talking about non-punitive model programs that actually help people get in a better space. Doing the work that I've been able to do as an advocate with the work that I do with low-income and houseless communities, I have bridged that gap with helping people access basic health care, which access to basic mental health care, which actually opened a door for them to qualify for disability benefits, which made them qualify for affordable housing. And I'm happy to say that, you know, some of my clients have been able to get off the streets and be housed because of this reason.
We have this program in Berkeley called Options. It's not really a program, it's programming. And it's programming people to stay out of Berkeley, basically. You know, it used to be somebody would get caught, get a ticket for having a beer. They go to court. They say okay, and it would be over with. But now they put them on 3 years probation, and they send them to this lady, Dr. Cody, who was talking the other day again for Measure S. And of course she's for Measure S. That's her bread and butter. She'll start a program for people that sit. There was a guy. His name was Kevin Freeman. He sat right in front of Shakespeare's books on Telegraph. He was the most mellowest person you'd ever want to meet. They sent him to jail for 90. First they told him to stay, that he couldn't go on Telegraph. Telegraph was all he knew. So of course he went back to Telegraph. So then they locked him up again. They put him in a cell in Santa Rita with a guy who had just stabbed 3 people. And the guy bashed his brains all over the cell and murdered him. Okay? That's what sitting laws do to people. Okay? That's what these laws do to people. That's the power they want. They want the power. See, it's not about getting the ticket. It's about getting thrown with the worst human beings possible in jail and getting your ass kicked, getting murdered, getting put in solitary confinement for months at a time. I mean, I could go on and how many times I've been beaten. When I think of the people that I've known over the years that I've seen come out of Santa Rita with their eyes out to here and their arms in slings, it just makes me want to throw up. And that's what they want to do more of, and that's ridiculous. And I'll always fight that. You know, it's bad enough being poor, being homeless, being broke on the streets, but then you got to go get a beating for it. It's ridiculous. You know, and then once you get caught in the Dr. Cody world, forget about it. You know, they send you to jail. They come in and say, yeah, he didn't show up at our meeting and blah, blah, blah. You know, they want you to go to a meeting. You got to be there at, I guess, 8 o'clock in the morning. And then, it's funny, she always says, her husband, she married one of the people that were going to her meetings. And she goes, well, my husband went through it. Yeah. When her husband went through it, it was a 40-day program. Now it's like over a year that you got to be in the program. Okay, so don't tell me how your husband went through it. Okay, and she was sweet on him, so he could do whatever he wanted anyway. And are you supposed to marry your clients? I don't think so, but that's another thing we should look into. But so you know, if you don't show up to one of her things, she just tells the judge, oh, he's not cooperating, blah, 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 and they throw you in jail. So, I mean, you know, they got you. You know, I went to court. I mean, I went to the city hall because they were asking for $200,000. All right, $200,000 that could be spent on homeless people. They wanted to suck up $200,000 from the city. Okay, and I went to court against that. 2 days later, I got a warrant for my arrest in the mail. 2 days later. Some stupid thing months ago that they said, don't worry about it, we threw it out. They brought it back up and they brought me to court. And if I didn't show up to court with 20 people that day, they would have rammed me good. All right, but I brought 3 lawyers and all kinds of activists with me. And that's and they went, oh, this is just a mistake. I'm sorry about that. And threw it away as fast as they could. But if I went in there by myself, I'd still be in jail.
Is a human rights framework applicable in the No on S campaign?
There is no housing for 600 or more homeless people in the city of Berkeley when some people view housing as a human right. Access to bathrooms as a human right, all kinds of things as human rights. Berkeley isn't really living up to its human rights potential in the way that it treats homeless people. And this measure is a great example of that. People aren't really thinking that the folks who are going to be criminalized by Measure S are actually human beings, and they do have a right to exist, even if it's inconvenient and it makes some people uncomfortable. These are human beings. They have a right to be here and to exist and to take care of their basic human functions like sleeping and sitting down and using the bathroom and getting rest and existing. This measure really wants to disappear homeless people and poor people from public space. It's very clear that that's what it's about. And they've lied to merchants in the sense that they've told merchants, gee, if we disappear these homeless people by giving them tickets for sitting on the sidewalk, all of your businesses are going to get better. You know, who's funding this? The people who are funding this are commercial landlords. It's not individual businesses, with a couple of small exceptions. It's not actually individual businesses, it's commercial landlords who would like to turn downtown Berkeley and Telegraph Avenue into sanitized malls like you would run into in Walnut Creek or some other affluent suburb. This is Berkeley, this is not Walnut Creek. It's an actual urban downtown, and you can't just banish people from public space because you don't want to see poor people. That's not respecting anybody's human rights.
Not even a lot of cities do a lot. Like this city does quite a lot for their homeless, but I've been in other places where I starved for 2 days because I couldn't get a bite to eat. And that's ridiculous. I shouldn't have to do that. Not when I'm walking by and I see food everywhere and I don't have a piece of paper that's not even a real piece of paper and I cannot eat. Are you kidding? People wake up, homeless people, the rudest thing I've ever seen. People kick us awake. When we do get awake, it's come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. It's like, do you get woken up like that every morning? every time you get woken up, do you like roll out of bed and like hop up and it's like, let's do this? Nobody does. I don't know who does. You know what I'm saying? And that's just another thing that gets me going about.
So not being treated with human dignity.
Yeah. You know, I'm not being treated like a basic human being, citizen, person. I'm being walked on like I'm a stray dog.
You know, I see on the news all the time, people saying, oh, these people are getting foreclosed on, it's horrible, it's terrible. These people that are getting foreclosed on are out here on the sidewalk right now, okay? But they don't care about that. I don't hear anybody saying, hey, you know, we got to do something for these people. Once they hit the sidewalk, they turn into a whole different type of human being. Or even if they're human at all, they're just a completely different animal. You know, the person being foreclosed on is a human being. The person that's been foreclosed on becomes some lower type of creature that really doesn't qualify as a human being anymore. And I think that's pretty sad. The first thing I would do is get rid of options recovery, okay? And those idiot ambassadors. I went down the street the other day. I had me, my wife, my 2 little kids, and this guy comes by in a green shirt like this, and he like almost pushed my kid over, and I was gonna get out of my chair and kick his ass. And then I look and it says Berkeley ambassador on his shirt. I go, that's an ambassador? They don't do anything. I've never seen them stop and talk to one person to help them. Never. I went up there to give him just to try him out. I went, excuse me, you know, I'm homeless. Like, is there anything, you know that I could take advantage of, you know, to get off the streets? And the guy goes, nah, there's really not much going on right now, man. You know, most of the shelters are full. And and was talking to somebody else and just kept talking to the other person. You know, that they don't do anything for anybody. Like, I could care less if I was having problems. It's been about 6 or 7 years ago we got a rain shelter started in Berkeley, but a lot of times it's not handicapped accessible, so I think that's a problem. We don't really have anything for disabled people. They get you up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then either you got to take everything with you, or they lock your stuff up all day. So if I was to get like an artificial leg and need to take it off in the middle of the day and change, I couldn't do that if I was in a shelter. I mean, it's just so many ways that they make it nearly impossible. And then, you know, they go, hey, get out of here at 6 o'clock in the morning, and where are you going to go? You're going to go sit out on a sidewalk somewhere, right? And they're going to make that illegal next. So now what are you going to do? You know, they're just trying to make it more and more difficult for people to survive. So I would make the shelters accessible, like 24 hours a day, you know, so people can get in and out and kind of live like normally, and have a little more privacy. Because if you have you been to the shelter here? It looks like a jail. It is a jail, and you know, it has bars and everything. You know, they roll the bars up and down, and they put you in there on these bunks with other people. I mean, it's scarier to be in there than it is to sleep out in the streets. And so, you know, I would change that whole system if I could. I would definitely make it easier for people to eat. I'd make it easier for people to have transportation. You know, once you fall past a certain level in homelessness, it's almost impossible to get up out of there, because you know your clothes are ratty, you can't shower all the time, you know, your hair looks funky, you know, people look at you and they're like, I'm not gonna rent this guy a place to. Are you kidding? You know, I'm not gonna give this guy a job. Who would want this guy in my shop? I don't even want him in here right now. Get out. You know, and you know, so once we got to keep people from falling past that point.
To get into housing, you have poverty pimp organizations that run these housing entities with government funding, and they make it nearly impossible for especially people with mental illness to get housed. And the bottom line of it is there's just not enough of it to go around. A lot of punitive rules about now they're doing credit checks, asking people if they've been bankrupt, what's their eviction history. Bottom line of it is, if you had all that stuff good, you sure in hell wouldn't be living in this low-income housing, and most of it being substandard in its structure and in its maintenance and upkeep. And most people wouldn't want to live in that. But because of economic hardship and desperation to have warm water and a place to wash your dishes, which is something I didn't have for almost 4 years with my children, you will take and settle for less out of desperation for those basic human rights amenities. And so a lot of people out there are what I call houseless because of the simple fact that our society does not consider people being on the street a problem, but they do consider it a crime, and that in itself is a problem. You have people out there that may have had felonies for possession of marijuana, something that's small 5 to 10 years ago, and they still can't access food stamps because of punitive state laws. So then you have these local laws, such as in Berkeley, where already we have these laws in place about blocking the sidewalk. We've had this law in place for years in Berkeley, so why do we need another law? Why do we need to waste money on another law? That is a violation of human rights, and yes, we should definitely have something in place that addresses that, just as the Declaration of Human Rights does, to have basic shelter, basic health care, to have basic means of finance stability, even if it just means the bare bones basic, to actually have those things is a human right. And in Berkeley, you would think that people would be more adamant about having those rights exercised, but from what I see with the current mayor of Berkeley, Mayor Bates, and some of these selfish shop owners and community members, they'd rather put flowers and petunias in flower pots and spend money that way and take care of the plants and water them than take care of human beings who are laying there in their excrement, sometimes not even alive, on the street. And we see this a lot in Berkeley, and in some sick, twisted way have inadvertently accepted that as a norm, and it's not normal, it's not okay, and it is a violation of human rights, and it's something we really need to revisit in this community in Berkeley, so-called liberal Berkeley.
When you go through something like that, and hundreds of thousands of people walk by me, hundreds of thousands, millions of people walk by me, and nobody stopped and said, "Hey, is there anything I can do for you?" A few people did. Don't get me wrong. There's good people out there, but the people that really helped me were the other people that were going through the same thing that I was going through. And there's no way that I'm going to let somebody help me like that and not help them in return. There's just no way. I owe that to them. So when I go out there, and people pat you on the back, "Oh, you're such a good man. I can't believe you do all this work for people." I do that because I owe that. I owe that to them.
What did we learn from this project?
As a human rights minor, I didn't think that I would be focusing on the area around us at Berkeley. I mainly thought that going into this field I would be going abroad more and solving human rights violations in other countries, but with this measure being put into place, it's kind of frightening how homeless people that you see every day, Bangkok and Telegraph, walking to school, are potentially being criminalized, and thus human rights for them are being violated if this is to pass. Talking to homeless people that we've encountered and people who are not homeless anymore has really shaped my perspective on homeless people. Even though I am from Berkeley and have been around homeless people, I never really thought they were a threat per se. I just don't understand why people think that homeless people choose to be homeless. The people we've talked to obviously have no alternatives. They are either disabled or have been disabled and have no support and no way to get a job, or they are children or young minors that have, or not minors, youth, let's say, that have not been able to find a job either because, let's say, they're in the foster care program, and as soon as they were 18, they were just kicked out of the house and had nowhere to go and no way to get a college education or anything, and thus you see a large amount of them on Shattuck and downtown Berkeley, not necessarily because they choose to be there, which is this misconception of why there are a fair amount of youth homeless people, and it really strikes me to hear that there's only 600 homeless people roughly in Berkeley, because for someone who's just walking around Telegraph and downtown Berkeley, it seems like a small area and there's a large concentration of them, so it feels like a lot of people, but it's actually realistically not as bad as other cities. So to think that there's 600 homeless people and only 135 beds in the shelters for them to sleep in is outrageous. To think, where are those other people supposed to go? Where are they supposed to sleep? And this measure has shown to aim at homeless people who sit in front of businesses because they think that it's taking away from business, but it's apparent that there are other factors that they need to take into account that are causing their business to maybe not be so good.